Alright, Shalom. Before I begin this video, all praise, honor, and glory goes into Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, GMS, who rule well and teach well, as well as the sincere salutations to the elder bishops, along with you brothers laboring all throughout the four winds of the earth. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash, Barakatham. Unto you brothers. And this is going to be a video, lesson entitled, "The Lord had the elect to create everything," right? Everything is comprised of these elements. So we're going to go into exactly the elements. Everything that's here on earth and in the universe is comprised of these elements that the Lord created. So let me just get straight into it. Lord's will is edifying.
Now remember, everything you've ever touched, everything you've ever tasted, every substance that you've ever interacted with is made up of matter. And it was one of the greatest discoveries, in my opinion, in all of human history, that all of the different character of substances that you interact with on a daily basis are really not all that different, and actually only made up of about 100 or so of these smaller building blocks that nowadays we call atoms or elements on the periodic table. Think about water, something you interact with every day. Obviously, it's cool, it's refreshing, it's wet, at room temperature, it's a liquid. But once upon a time, humans actually thought that water was its own unique fundamental substance. But now we know that water is really made up of smaller building blocks. Nowadays, we call them atoms or elements on the periodic table. Specifically for water is hydrogen and oxygen, which are atoms that are bound into a larger structure called a molecule of two atoms of hydrogen for one atom of oxygen. And whenever you do that, the character of water is totally different than the character of the hydrogen and the oxygen that make it up. It'd be kind of fun and educational for me as well to take a minute and go through the entire periodic table, starting with element number 1 and ending up with element number 118, and take just a couple seconds on each element to discuss what the material is, some notable or maybe interesting characteristics. If there's some interesting historical story behind it, maybe we'll chat about that for a second and talk about maybe what it looks like. After all, everything you've ever touched is made up of these things, so let's learn a little bit about them. All right, here we go. Let's get started with element number 1. That's hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. That's its notable claim to fame, in my opinion. Hydrogen actually powers our sun through nuclear fusion, releasing energy. Now, here's an interesting fact. Despite being placed above the alkali metals on the left-hand side of the periodic table, hydrogen isn't actually a metal. It's in a class all by itself. Hydrogen is just a little bit weird, sometimes acting as a metal and sometimes acting as a non-metal. Element number 2, we call it helium. Now, this was first discovered in the sun's spectrum from the light before being found on Earth. Hence its name, Helios, coming from the word helios, which means sun. Now, here's a fun fact. The world's helium supplies are actually running low, and once it's released into the atmosphere, it escapes into space because it's so light and so hard to hold on to. Next, we come to element number 3. We call it lithium. So this is essential for rechargeable batteries and also for treating bipolar disorder. Here's an interesting fact. All lithium on Earth was actually created after the first few minutes after the Big Bang. We have the element beryllium. It's used in emeralds and also in aerospace components. I know that they had beryllium brakes on the space shuttle, for instance, back in the day, and it's due to its lightweight strength. Despite its toxicity, it's actually essential in X-ray machines, where its transparency to X-rays is actually really important. important for those situations. Element number 5, we have boron. Now, this is found in every eye drop that contains boric acid, and it's essential for plant growth. Now, here's an interesting fact. Boron-based compounds are actually used in bulletproof vests and also in armor for tanks. Here we come to number 6, the very familiar carbon. So this is the backbone of all known life, at least on Earth. Carbon can form up to 10 million different known compounds. That's based on the way it bonds with other carbon atoms and other things. Now, here's an interesting fact. A diamond and the graphite in your pencil are both pure carbon, just arranged differently down at the atomic level. Here's element number 7. We call it nitrogen. It makes up a whopping 78% of the Earth's atmosphere. It's actually crucial for amino acids. You see nitrogen's running around all over the molecular structure of amino acids. So here's a fun fact. Liquid nitrogen's extreme cold is actually used to flash freeze foods and preserve biological samples. Element number 8, you probably heard of it. It's called oxygen. It's essential for most life, and it makes up about 65% of the human body by mass. Don't forget, oxygen isn't just a gas. It's bound up in all other molecules, lots of other molecules as well. Here's a fun fact. Oxygen isn't always good. It actually causes metal to rust and wine to turn into vinegar. Element number 9 is called fluorine. It's the most reactive non-metal, and it can form compounds with most elements. Even some noble gases, which normally doesn't react with anything at all, can actually react with fluorine. So early researchers studying fluorine often died or were severely injured, earning it the nickname the Tiger of Chemistry. Here's another one you've almost certainly heard of, element number 10, called neon. It's famous for its use in signs that glow up in these nice colors, right? But neon was first discovered when William Ramsay and Morris Tavers literally froze air until it liquefied, and then it separated the components of the air. Now, though we associate neon with the red signs, pure neon is actually glowing orange. The red colors actually come from other gases, which are usually in the mixture with the neon in those signs.
What can a no-fee, no-minimum Capital One 360 checking account do for you?
Capital One Bank? A lot.
Bank and sip at any Capital One cafe. That's the stuff. Try a no-fee.
Red colors actually come from other gases, which are usually in the mixture with the neon in those signs. Element number 11 you've certainly heard of. It's called sodium. It's actually essential for nerve function in ion channels and nerve triggering, but actually forms the basis of something super common called table salt, sodium chloride. So you eat it all the time. Here's a fun fact. Pure sodium is so reactive that it explodes on contact with water, and it has to be stored in oil in order to prevent it from reacting with the water that's in the air. And basically that happens because sodium has an electron in the outer shell that's very loosely bound, doesn't hold on to it well, and that's why it's so reactive. Element number 12, magnesium. It's found in chlorophyll, making it crucial for photosynthesis and plant life. Here's a fun fact. Magnesium powder was used in early photography flash bulbs, producing an intense bright white light. Actually, don't do this at home. Maybe I'll do it one day. But if you take a ribbon of magnesium metal and light it with a high enough temperature, it actually burns and combines with the oxygen, producing that intense white light with that pure magnesium metal burning. Here's element number 13, aluminum, of aluminum foil fame, the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, but it wasn't actually isolated until the 1820s. Here's a cool fact. Napoleon III served his most honored guests with aluminum utensils, while the less favored guests actually used gold. Aluminum was once more valuable than gold. Now here's one you've absolutely heard of, number 14. It's called silicon. So this is the backbone of the computer industry and the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust. Here's a fun fact. Every grain of sand on Earth contains silicon, and without it, we wouldn't have modern electronics or glass. Silicon has a whole host of interesting properties. It's called a semiconductor, kind of has properties of a conductor and properties of an insulator, and that allows us to build things called transistors, which is the basis of all of our modern computer chips. Element number 15, probably heard of, called phosphorus. So it's right? That's the energy molecule in the body, and bone structure. Here's a bizarre discovery fact. It was first isolated from urine by an alchemist that was actually searching for the Philosopher's Stone, who noticed it while glowing in the dark. Number 16, stinky sulfur has a bad rap. Sulfur, known since ancient times as brimstone. It's crucial for vulcanizing rubber. Here's an interesting fact. Some bacteria actually use sulfur instead of oxygen for their energy production. They actually thrive in these hot springs and deep sea vents. You've probably seen pictures from Yellowstone of these beautiful, weird colored hot springs and things. Very often there's lots of sulfur compounds coming out of the earth populating those things. And when they found life, very primitive, weird life in some of those inhospitable areas, it was a huge discovery. Element 17, you've heard of chlorine. It's used in water purification to keep our water clean, and also, of course, table salt, sodium chloride, it's in there as well. Here's an interesting fact. Chlorine was actually the first chemical weapon used in World War I, leading to the development of chemical warfare. And it's kind of a sad fact in my opinion, but that's a true fact. Here's element number 18, called argon. It makes up about 1% of Earth's atmosphere, and it's used in light bulbs and also in welding. So here's a fun fact. The name of argon comes from the Greek, which means lazy or inactive, because it hardly reacts with anything. Actually, all of the gases on the right side of the periodic table, of which argon is one of them, they don't really react with anything because the electrons are very tightly held to the nucleus in their shells for those atoms. One of my favorites, element 19, it's called potassium. It's critical for heart and muscle function, and it gets its symbol, which on the periodic table is the letter K, from the Latin kalium. Now here's an interesting fact. Bananas are famously high in potassium, but potatoes actually contain more per serving. Now, potassium violently reacts with water, causing a production of hydrogen gas, usually exploding on contact with water, again, because the outer electron of potassium is so weakly held on, it can donate it in chemical reactions. Element 20, we call it calcium. Beyond building bones and teeth, calcium is actually vital for muscle contraction and nerve signaling. Here's a fun fact about calcium. Calcium compounds create the bright red color in fireworks. Those brilliant red colors, and limestone caves are formed by calcium carbonate dissolving in slightly acidic groundwater. Here's element 21, a weird one called scandium. So it's a rare earth element that makes aluminum alloy stronger and lighter. Remember, an alloy is when you mix more than one element or metal together, usually to create something tougher or with different characteristics. Now, though it was discovered in Scandinavia, it's actually more abundant in the moon's crust than in the Earth's crust. Now, here's a cool one, element number 22. It's called titanium. It's known for its incredible strength-to-weight ratio and for its corrosion resistance. Here's a cool fact. The airplane, the SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, was made of titanium that the CIA secretly bought from the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And if you ever go camping for backpacking, you get those very lightweight cups and spoons made of titanium. They are incredibly feather-light, but incredibly strong. Here's element 23. It's called vanadium. It's essential for some sea creatures, and it also adds incredible strength to steel. Here's an interesting fact about vanadium. It was discovered twice, actually. First in Mexico, and then again in Sweden, and it's actually named after Vanadis, the Norse goddess of beauty, due to its colorful compounds. You probably heard of this one.
And you notice that all these elements have Greek influence. Right, different influence, when in reality, it's the Lord that made, these things, man. All right, Isaiah 45:18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua himself that formed the earth and made it. All right, so he created Yahushua created 144,000. Right, and the 144,000 under Yahushua created everything, like he's speaking on absolutely everything that's here on the earth is comprised of elements. Isaiah 45:18, continuing down, it says, he hath established it He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I said not unto the seed of Jacob, seek ye me in vain. I, the Lord, speak righteousness. I declare things that are right. So that's part of our job, is to declare righteousness, defend the gospel and to proclaim the righteousness of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. And it's a great thing to, just learn about these different elements, what different things are made out of. Because these different elements, we're going to have the heathen digging for them. We're going to have different, purposes, different metals are going to be made. Of course, we're going to have them, getting the choicest gold, so on and so forth.
Element 24 called chromium. So it gives stainless steel its shine and its resistance to tarnishing. So the interesting thing here is the red color of rubies actually comes from chromium impurities in the aluminum oxide crystals. Actually, that's an interesting fun fact all by itself. A lot of the crystals that we prize so much for their beautiful colors is oftentimes coming from a single atom or very small amount of atoms as impurities in the crystal lattice of something else. Here we go with element 25. It's called manganese. It's essential for photosynthesis and for the production of steel. So manganese nodules litter some parts of the ocean floor, leading potential deep-sea mining prospects to get more of it from the ocean floor. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you've heard of element 26. It's called iron. It's the most abundant element on Earth by mass, and it's crucial for the hemoglobin in blood. So here's an interesting historical fact about iron. The Iron Age, probably heard of, actually revolutionized human civilization, but ancient Egyptians actually called it metal from heaven because their first iron actually came from meteorites, and we're still finding iron in meteorites every year on Earth. Element 27 is called cobalt. It gives vivid blue colors to glass and also to ceramics, and it's essential for vitamin B12, so you really do need it. Here's an interesting fact. Cobalt, the name, comes from the word kobold, which means goblin, because miners actually thought goblins had cursed the ore when it released toxic arsenic fumes during smelting. Element 28, probably heard of nickel. It's essential for many rechargeable batteries, and it's found in the Earth's core. Here's a fun fact. The U.S. Nickel, the 5-cent piece, is actually called a nickel, but it's only about 25% nickel today. It was once pure nickel during wartime. Element 29 is called copper. You probably heard of that. One of the first metals used by humans, and it's crucial for electrical wiring. Has a low electrical resistance because of all the free electrons in the outer shell of the copper atom. Here's a historical fun fact. Ancient Egyptians actually used copper pipes for plumbing that are still functioning today over 5,000 years later. Element number 30 is called zinc. It's essential for immune system function. You can take your zinc vitamins, and it protects steel from rust through something called galvanization. Here's something interesting. Zinc oxide was first called the philosopher's wool by alchemists because of the fluffy white powder that forms when zinc burns. Element number 31 is actually one of my favorites. I'll probably do a video just on this, and it's the element gallium. It's a metal that actually melts in your hand at about 85.6 degrees. Here's a fun fact. It's a popular science demo to make spoons out of gallium, and you form it into the shape of a spoon, and when you stir a hot liquid like tea or something, the spoon basically melts and disappears. Element number 32 is called germanium. It's key to the development of the first transistor and the electronics revolution. Here's something I think is interesting. The existence of this element was predicted by Mendeleev before it was actually discovered, and he called it ecosilicon. Element 33 you've almost certainly heard of. It's called arsenic. It's of course famous as a poison in murder mysteries, but it's also essential for semiconductor manufacturing. That's transistors, diodes, computer chips, all sorts of modern technology. Here's a fun fact. Some bacteria can actually use arsenic instead of phosphorus in their DNA, which challenges, honestly, our understanding of life's requirements. Element 34, it's called selenium. Essential trace element for humans and used in photocopiers. Now here's a fun fact. It was
which, Salaki, I'm going to have to break this up into parts. So this is going to be part 1. I just had an issue with the video itself. So I had to like re-record it and then break it into pieces. So this is just going to be a part 1. So I'll probably make, since this original video last night is messing up, I'll just break it into parts and then leave off from here. All right. So with that, Lord's will, you're edified. Call halal Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakakwadash. Once again, double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, GMS, who rule well and teach well and taught us his truth, as well as the sincere salutations to the elder bishops, along with you brothers laboring all throughout the four winds of the earth. Yahbashim Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakakwadash. Barakathum. Lord's will, you brothers of the elect. Lord's will, I'm of the elect. All right. And we were, there with the Lord during the creation of these, things and, these different elements and different things being implemented and put together and, Lord's will. And I'll have to do a video on that. Just getting into the book of Genesis, the Alahayim, which is something that, the brothers and I had gone over probably about 6 months ago. But just, coming back to that, it's always great to, this truth is a circle, a big circle, a circuit, Sometimes we go over the same points and we, edify again and again, because there's many layers. So there's going to be probably a part 2, probably even a part 3 to this, because it's a really long video, but I'm gonna break it up into sections. Once again, Shalom. And Kwame Yashala and Abba Ball. Shalom.